You know, I met a general. His name was General Kane. I don't even know. Maybe he's not even on my side. Who the hell knows with these generals? You know, when I get through with this guy Milley, I mean, how about Milley? Remember? Remember when I walked to the church, proudly walked to the church, that the protesters, they tried to burn it down, but I walked to the church, protesters out there, and Milley was walking with me. And the next day, the radical left media starts calling, you shouldn't have walked, you shouldn't have walked. Instead of saying, I'm proud to walk with my president, not because it's me, because of the office. Instead of saying that, he wanted to apologize for walking with the president of the United States. And I said, this guy doesn't have what it takes. And you're seeing that now, because the worst decisions I've ever seen. That's, again, why I put the patent. I just remembered it as I was coming over here. I said, get that clip quickly. The people of Alabama understand that clip. Do you think that... Let me ask you, do you...
Recently, Donald Trump spoke out against the concept of being woke, voicing his dissatisfaction with what he perceives as a cultural change. He shared a story about meeting General Milley, who faced criticism for joining Trump at a church during protests.
She gets up and she says, Patrick, this is very hard for me to say this. And let me tell you why it's very hard. I said, what's that? She says, ever since in high school, I wanted to prove to men that I can beat them. So when I graduated high school and college, I opened up my salon. We do very well. I've made millions of dollars. My people and my work that work at the salon, they do very well for themselves. I drive a nice car, I have a nice house, I have money, I have millions. I don't worry about any of that stuff. You know what decision I made last night? I said, what's that? She says, I want a husband. I no longer want to compete with men. I need them. And I'm like, what? She's saying this in front of 2,000 people with her sister sitting right next to her. Wow. And now she's getting emotional. How many 65-year-old women do we have to hear saying that I marched with the feminist movement and I bought into the fact that men are the enemy? I've never been married. I'm alone and I'm miserable and I...
The harsh reality of modern feminism is illustrated when a successful woman reveals that she once sought to surpass men but now desires a husband. Despite her financial success and accomplishments, she feels unfulfilled and regrets her previous belief that men were adversaries, realizing too late that she is isolated and unhappy.
A judge in an employment tribunal in Peterborough has said that claiming not to be a feminist could be an act of discrimination. I quote the judge, who said it would appear that a feminist is simply about all genders having equal rights and opportunities as men. The judge confessed the tribunal was perplexed by the defendant's non-feminist views and suggested such opinions would be in breach of equality laws. I'm as perplexed as the judge by his statement that feminism relates to all genders, implying more than two. I thought feminism was about women, not the transgender ideology. But discrimination must require action rather than a lack of belief. As long as others are treated equally under the law, is there one definition of feminism that must be believed? This seems an extraordinary intrusion into personal belief, as opposed to viewing discrimination as an active decision. Well, with me now is my panel, associate commentator at The Telegraph, Mutaz Ahmed, and the historian and broadcaster, Tessa Dunlop. Tessa, is it compulsory, basically, to agree with you? Now, you may think it should be, but is that a sensible way for the law to go?
Isn't that why you have me here? It's your token feminist, so that you aren't entirely shut down by a tribunal, the establishment that is GB News. No, I looked up the definition of feminism for you, Jake, because I thought you might need some help in this area. It is the advocacy of women's rights, people like me, on the basis of the equality of the sexes. So that is baked into law, last updated, as we discovered.
Well, hold on. Baked into law, the equality, and yes. I'm all in favour of that, but advocacy. To say that it is compulsory to advocate something is very different from saying that something is the law of the land.
It's good to see you, your usual pedantry self.
Yeah, that's what you would expect. It's what my viewers and listeners expect.
Indeed. It's important to say that this manager, he was an environmental agency manager, therefore he had a level of agency within his agency. They were contesting his maintenance of a non-feminist view. They suggested that was discriminatory, i.e., as a manager, by maintaining non-feminist views that impacts on your ability.
Jacob Rees-Mogg had a fiery exchange with a feminist panelist over a contentious tribunal decision in Peterborough.
Do you think that selling your nudes online and do you think the money that you make from that translates to any sort of intelligence or skill, or do you accept the fact that you have no skill and maybe lack a lot of intelligence, which is why you had to go down that path?
That is not why I had to go down that path. I have a degree.
A degree in what?
Philosophy.
You could have become a very well-respected lawyer, had a good career. What do you think your kids are going to think when they said, oh, my mom had two options? They could have been a philosopher and a lawyer who made a lot of money, but they decided to be an online whore for 2 years, and then when they got ugly, now nobody wants to hire them anymore because they ruined their name and their reputation.
A 15-year-old boy challenges feminists on a panel by questioning the worth of selling explicit content online. He suggests that pursuing education or a respectable career would be far more valuable. His straightforward remarks leave the feminists speechless, especially when he probes how such choices might affect their future children.
What were some of the things you were told about men while growing up?
Don't trust them. Yeah, I agree with that one.
What is the most surprising thing you've learned about men from your experiences?
You can't trust them. Facts.
Do you prefer a man who is a gentleman or a bad boy?
Bad boy. Bad boy.
Is it fair to say women lust after bad boys but want to settle down with nice guys?
Yeah.
If you happen to be looking for a quality man, where would you expect to find one?
A quality man? Church. Yes, that's...
When was the last time you went to church?
Two feminists with a woke mindset reveal their partial views on men, showing a preference for bad boys over others. They admit that while women are drawn to bad boys, they ultimately want to settle down with nice guys. Ironically, when asked about finding a good man at church, one confesses she hasn't attended church lately, exposing their contradictions.
We know that Nicola Sturgeon can't answer that. We know Keir Starmer can't answer that. You're the British Prime Minister. What is a woman?
Yeah, of course I know what a woman is. An adult human female.
It's not difficult, is it, Angelica? I mean, that is what a woman is.
I mean, I don't know why you're obsessed with defining it. Like, what is a man? Like, why do we need these arbitrary...
A man is a male adult human. I mean, that's it.
Right, OK. I don't know that we need
these are just biological facts, but they're just facts. They're not arguable points, are they?
But I think we have a right to self-identify. And you said
as
you
what?
Want to...
As what?
If you'd like to be a woman, you can identify as a woman. I don't know why there is such an issue around...
We've literally just seen a male rapist use that scam to get himself put into a female prison where he could attack vulnerable women inside a female prison, when even his ex-wife said it was all a scam. Which
is a terrible, very distressing, isolated incident. And I think it's easy to take that and say that means that no one can identify as a woman.
But
and
it's not an isolated incident, though.
But it's
42% of trans-identifying prisoners in prison are in there for sex crimes. There's actually an advantage, evidently, to identifying as a female, because they never identify as male, because somehow male prisons seem less appealing to them. It's really weird. Anyway, but
is it limitless, this self-identity?
It's not totally limitless.
What's the limit?
When you're talking about International Women's Day, I don't know why we take the conversation around International Women's Day and make it about this.
But if anyone,
there's so many benefits.
Right, but if anyone, according
to
you, can identify as a woman, anyone can, right?
I don't see a problem with.
Just literally put the hand up and say I'm a woman.
But it's not an easy thing to do, to go out into the world.
It's very easy.
Very easy.
You might think it's easy to say, but to decide to do that, to say
what
this
does
is
doing
who,
it involve?
Whatever that person decides, but to
Does it
go
involve
out into the
makeup?
world and say, I don't identify as perhaps the sex I
So
was
why
born
can't
as.
I identify?
Not...
Okay, why can't I identify as a black lesbian?
Well, firstly, I mean, it was.
I'm serious. I'm serious. If I can identify as anything without any need to prove I'm actually what that is, why can't I, on International Women's Day, say I'm Piers Morgan?
Morgan contends that the growing trend of allowing people to self-identify without any biological basis leads to absurd scenarios, such as male rapists identifying as women to access female spaces.
Is it that a bill banning abortions after a woman has been pregnant for 6 weeks is not a return to the Dark Ages? What's your answer?
My answer is something called science. Human life exists at conception. It ought to be protected. Now, back to my question to you. You purport to be an objective journalist. BBC purports to be an objective down-the-middle network. It obviously is not. It never has been. And you, as a journalist, are proceeding to call one side of the political aisle ignorant, barbaric, and sending us back to the Dark Ages. Why don't you just say that you're on the left? Is this so hard for you? Why can't you just be honest?
Mr.
Seriously,
Shapiro,
it's a serious question.
Mr. Shapiro, if you only knew how ridiculous that statement is, you wouldn't have said it. I just
Really?
asked you a question.
And I asked you a question. You failed to answer a single one of mine. Frankly, I find this whole thing a waste of time. If you want to read the book and critique the book, why don't you read and critique the book? If you want to critique me, you can think whatever you want of me.
Why don't you
frankly,
just try and
I don't
answer
care.
the
I don't
questions?
frankly give a damn what you think of me since I've never heard of you.
And I've never heard of you until I briefed myself for this. But that's not the issue. You have a
Then
new
why the
book
hell are you
out,
interviewing
and
me, sir?
it's an interesting book. But my point is, your book claims
Well,
that
it'd be
society...
nice if you would quote it from time to time.
Your book is... Well, actually, I've done so several times, and I'm about to do so again, if you would let me just finish the question. Your book
frankly, I don't
claims
think
that
this, you know what?
society
Honestly,
is turning its
sir,
back on Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah,
What are those
considering
values? What are the values it's turning its back on?
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse. Now, Mr. Shapiro.
Andrew Neil confronted Ben Shapiro regarding his stance on abortion restrictions. Neil challenged Shapiro's claim that a 6-week abortion ban isn't a step backward, urging him to address perceived biases at the BBC and the arguments in his book about society drifting from Judeo-Christian values.
Because
they're nuts, a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of it is absolutely nuts. I also don't really identify with being on the right either, because they're nuts
I agree.
as well.
I agree.
So I find myself in this
You get
middle
nuts
point.
on both sides, and we're moving to the extremities.
Yeah. But I'll get cancelled from both sides because I don't wear the football kit of either.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
So I want to bring back a more consensus-related society, where you reach points of agreement through debate, and you don't try and shame or cancel each other for having different opinions, because that's at the core of this. You know, they call themselves liberals. They're not liberal. Liberalism isn't about an inability to tolerate other opinions. It's the opposite, right? You're supposed to tolerate and respect other opinions and agree to disagree. We've lost this in society because a small group of people, but very vocal and very angry about everything all the time, they are driving an agenda which, if we go down that road, will be the end of a democratic society as we know it. So I see myself humbly as trying to defend democracy. Genuinely. I know, and humility is not something that comes naturally to me, but genuinely trying to defend what democracy really is and trying to educate these wokies about what real liberalism is, what democracy actually means, what free speech means. Free speech is not about you in an echo chamber all agreeing with each other. As Churchill said, free speech is about listening to views you just don't agree with, but allowing people to have different views.
Morgan promotes a return to a more tolerant, consensus-driven society, arguing that genuine liberalism involves respecting diverse opinions and engaging in constructive dialogue rather than shaming or cancelling those with differing views.